What is up, Earhnoids and Spacenoids? I am just a simple new type, and in this episode we're returning to the story of Shin Matsunaga. Last time, Shin returned to the Solomon Defense Force along with Gato. The Federation started training pilots for Operation V. This included the Jabberwock team, who is testing out the G Ignis, G Shrike, and G Atlas. This time, the Jabberwock team faces off against Dozel. Oscar goes it alone. He faces off against Shin, and the stalemate of the one-year war brings in a lot of casualties for Zeon. So let's get into this. We mentioned Ernesto last time, but the other two Jabberwocks are Hope Galloway and Comac Blackwood, and of course Oscar joining after Ernesto's accident. Their G-Fighter is also referred to as the Proto G-Fighter. This mission that they are on is called Operation Antares, and their goal is to take out the Zabi line. Gato is attacked. Karius breaks formation. Gato rushes with just his Heat Hawk remaining. Shin comes in to help. The Jabberwocks pull back. Gato is humiliated. He is still being very dramatic. He says the outcome will be different next time. Calm down. Aurelia is playing her violin for Zena and Minerva. She hasn't been able to visit Shin since she has been here. Dozel suggests that Degwin's ship leave early for Side 3 due to the Federation's attack, but Kycilia thinks it may be a trap. Rambaral is hunting down guerrillas. Kycilia can send reinforcements from Granada, but Dozel doesn't think it is necessary. Heading towards Salomon is a fleet commanded by Wyatt Green. He ends up getting nuked in UC-0083 by Gato. On the ship is Ernesto, Hope, and Comac. They believe this is the mission that may bring EFF and Zeon to the negotiating table, but that would mean that the Gundam won't end up being necessary. Degwin and his fleet head back to Side 3. Aurelia is amongst the fleet. Gato is furious that he had to be saved by Shin. He thinks of him as low-born trash. Shin is on standby in his Zaku. He wonders why the Federation is choosing this moment to make their strike on Solomon. Zeon's combat fleet is double the size of Wyatt's fleet. They begin their attack. Also a part of this battle is Conscom. He notices that EFF released a beam dispersal screen, and they are heading into the debris field. Captain Lecoq is in command of the fleet. Haman is by Kycilia's side. Zeon sends out the Gobble. The Gobble is the predecessor to the Gattle. This was replaced by the Zaku-1. Unlike the Gattle, this is used as a fighter and an anti-ship fighter. The Gobble carries two large weapons stations capable of carrying medium missiles for anti-ship attacks, which can also hold large fuel tanks or mounted Vulcan pods. This is a two-seater. Other weapons include missile launchers and short-range missiles. The Proto G-Fighter takes out some Gobbles when Shin moves in. Gato is getting repairs and is mad that he isn't on the battlefield. Shin gets a hit on the Proto G-Fighter, but it doesn't slow it down. The fighter deploys a flashbang and flanks the Zaku. That is when Gato moves in. His Zaku is barely held together. Conscom is engaged with the EFF's fleet while Gato and Shin are linked up. Lecoq doesn't like how close the enemy is getting. The outer gates open and the Great Degwin begins to move out. Dozel must have been informed of the situation. The Proto G-Fighter moves in on the Great Degwin. Gato and Shin chase them. The Valkyrie launches in front of the Great Degwin. Dozel's custom Zaku is on top of the ship, acting as the vanguard. He whips out his giant warhammer. Lecoq tries to get him to not fight. The fighter is giving Shin and Gato a hard time, so he wants to see it for himself. They fire on Dozel, but his hammer deflects the rounds, no problem. A ball squad holds mirrors like shields, which hides them visually, and while under Minovsky particles, that's the only thing that matters. The balls swarm Dozel. Time to go golfing. The Proto G-Fighter takes out Gato's 120mm rifle. Shin tells Gato to get Dozel out of here. They fall back to their training area and regroup and catch them in a pincer move. The Proto G-Fighter moves in. Shin gets behind them while Dozel is hiding behind an asteroid. Gato fires his bazooka at an asteroid, flinging tiny meteors at the G-Fighter. Then Dozel moves in and swings his giant hammer. The Jabberwocks dodge the hammer but slam into Dozel's Zaku. Looks like he's going for a ride. Comac is knocked out during all of this. Dozel pulls out a regular Heat Hawk and gets a hit on the G-Fighter. They send Dozel's Zaku flying and an explosion goes off. Everyone rushes to go save Dozel. The Jabberwocks aren't sure if they got the kill. More swarm in on them. Oscar tells the others to head back. He ejects his G-Atlas from the Proto G-Fighter to keep Zeon busy. Oscar breaches Solomon. Shin chases Oscar. Looks like we are doing a Star Wars. As he descends into the core of Solomon, he is met with Shin. Shin tells him to stand down, but Oscar is going to go out in the blaze of glory. The two engage. The G-Atlas launches a bombardment. Shin is able to dodge and slice through the Atlas cannon with his Heat Hawk. Oscar overheats the G-Atlas and bails. Shin doesn't have enough fuel to get G-Atlas out of Solomon before it explodes. Gato comes in and says that he will handle this. Shin has to go after the rogue Fetty. Lecoq secures an evacuation route for Gato. Conscon tells Lecoq to get his shit together. His fleet distracts EFF while they search for Dozel. Aurelia and the civilians make their way to the shelters. One soldier pushes past Aurelia. It is Oscar in his Zeon uniform. Comac finally comes to as the G-parts are being surrounded by gobbles. Gato rushes out of Solomon with the overheating G-part that is about to explode. Meyer and Olga are part of the search operation. Meanwhile, Marlene Karn, Hamon's sister, is able to sense Dozel. She sneaks into the hangar and finds herself as Zaku 1. Shin is searching for Oscar with a group of MPs. When he is informed that Aurelia spotted someone who looked shady, and she decided to go after him on her own. Oscar makes it to Zena and Minerva. Aurelia refers to Oscar as an uncle. She could sense his heart. Oscar tells Zena that he is doing this because of the massacre at Loom. His entire family was slaughtered, and it is all because of Dozel's command. Aurelia sneaks in and tries to save Minerva, but she cries, alerting Oscar. He is stunned to find Aurelia here. Remember, Shin saved her from the Battle of Loom and the colony debris. She tells Oscar that Zeon saved her from Loom, but he can't get over the massacre that took out all of Side 5. He doesn't care. He is ready to burn this entire place down. Shin comes in to save them. Oh, he has a bomb, by the way. Gato yells on the comms, "Get out of the way, everyone! This thing's about to blow!" He makes it out of the gates of Solomon and hurls the G-Atlas. It finally goes off. Oscar looks away when he hears the explosion. He heard a noise in space? I guess it would be vibrations. Aurelia uses that moment to tackle Oscar. She probably should have set Minerva down before doing that. Zena goes to grab the detonator he was holding. Oscar aims his gun, but Shin enters and shoots his oxygen tank. The two get into a brawl. Shin says blowing this place up will make this war go on longer. It won't stop anything. Oscar wants Shin to kill him, but instead he is going to make him his slave to atone for his sins. Oscar says that the Federation will soon have mobile suits of their own. Karius saves Gato. Guards come to help Zena, but she lies and says nothing is going on. Shin thanks Aurelia for keeping Zena safe. Meyer spots Zaku 1. Dozel is drifting out into space. He was able to eject before his mobile suit exploded. The Zaku 1 approaches. It is Marlene coming to save the day, and thus begins whatever the hell this relationship is. Wyatt makes his retreat. Comac wakes up to Ernesto, who tells him the mission was a complete failure. Hope Galloway calls Oscar a foolish old man. The Zaku makes it back to Solomon. Dozel says, "It is I, your great leader, barely a scratch on me." He boosts the morale of his men with his ego. Shin and Gato debrief Dozel. He doesn't mention anything that went down with Oscar. Gato gives Shin the side eye. After the meeting, Gato asks Shin what game he is playing. He grabs a sword off the wall. Usually you want to duel your ceremonial swords before mounting them. He knows Shin is more than capable of capturing the Federation soldier. Shin says that his goals are to serve Dozel and nothing more. He says to strike him down if he thinks otherwise. Gato decides to back down. Dozel is informed that the Red Comet is running late. September 18th, UC 0079, Side 7. Char goes looking for a Gundam. He brings word back to Dozel that the Federation now has mobile suits. The tides started to shift at this moment. Soon after that, Dozel is informed that Garma Zabi was killed in action. Giran gives his propaganda speech during Garma's funeral. In the crowd is Shin, along with Yuri from 8th MS team, and Delaz from Stardust Memory. Is that supposed to be Chalyabul? They did Twinkified him. Bring back the Twink. Everyone cheers but Shin. Dozel visits the Zabi shrine. He apologizes to his brother Sasuro for not protecting Garma. You remember Sasuro? Dozel tells Shin that he sent Ramba Ral down to Earth with the new Zanzibar and Goof. He also gets word that Kycelia is making an elite team of ace pilots. They're calling it the Chimera Corps. Shin says that they tried to poach him and Gato for this new team. They take a detour to a park where they used to roam as children. Later that night, Dozel gets really drunk and stumbles onto Marlene. Ooh! Shin visits his mother's grave where he meets his father. Remember, he is a Daikun loyalist and opposes the Zabis. He says the death of Garma was bound to have happened. His dad wants Shin to walk away from this war. This prolonged stalemate is what is going to destroy Zeon in the end. Shin says he is going to stand by his man Dozel while he finds a faster way to end this war. Spying on Shin and his dad is Oscar. Dozel makes his leave from Side 3 back to Solomon. Acting as his guard is Robert Gilliam in a high-mobility Zaku. Robert Gilliam is a part of the MSV line, but he hasn't really shown up anywhere else in our coverage. Sometime later, Shin gives Aurelia a call. He brings her bad news. Ramba Rao and Hammond Crowley were killed in action. Remember, Crowley was Aurelia's teacher in the early days of the war. And that will do it for this episode. Shin is caught between a rock and a hard place. He acknowledges the evil doings of the Zabi family, but is simply trying to end this war. The Zabi's ego keeps the war moving forward, so Shin is there to ensure that at least Dozel's ego is in check. A lot of people argue that Dozel is the best of the Zabi siblings. Perhaps he is the best because Shin was by his side to ensure he doesn't become Girin and Kycelia. Next time, Shin gets a team together and heads to Side 3. He is going to personally beg Daegwon to consider a ceasefire. However, they are stopped by the Chimera Corps, and Shin faces off against Thomas Kurtz and Gerald Sakai. But that will do it for now, new types. Remember, loyalty is only as effective as the cause one fights for. Peace.